evening, and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 280th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. I'm so excited to have this gentleman back after a long absence. The absence is on me, but it's so good to have him back in a seat in front of me. We're going to be smoking some great cigars tonight, just drinking some tequila, shooting the shit, and talking all things new with his company. And we'll be doing that in just a few moments. Before we get to formal introductions, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. The Freestyle Live Pack is back, baby. You guys got to get a hold of yourself of this one. It is fantastic. The event pack, sometimes called mystery packs, offer a unique pre-launch experience for consumers who wish to deeply engage in each of Drew Estate's new product releases. The exclusive packs introduced during the Freestyle Live Special Edition broadcast held on Thursday, a couple weeks ago, January 18th, have an MSRP value of $40, but are actually worth way more. Each pack contains 3 mystery premium cigars without brand identification, a sleek Freestyle Live high-quantity torch lighter, a cigar cutter, of course, and a Freestyle Live leather strap keychain. In addition to these premium items, each event pack includes a Freestyle Live badge equipped with a unique QR code that allows purchasers to enter a sweepstakes for a chance to win extraordinary prizes. These prizes are nothing to sneeze at, guys. Nothing to sneer at, guys. Like I'm talking about, they've given out motorcycles, vacations. Oh my God! But the grand prize this time, get a load of this, guys, is a luxury custom pool table valued at $11,500. The first prize is a laptop valued at $4,600. Additionally, 10 luxury entrants will also win a Subculture Studios ashtray worth about $150 a piece. So good prizes, fantastic fun, and you get to sample something before it's actually out to market. So check it out at your Drew Diplomat retailer today and get yourself the latest Freestyle Life pack from Drew Estate. And welcome everybody back. This is our 280th take. Yes, count it up. 280 of these. I've done them 280 times, and we're going to get things kicked off with tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is always sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living United. Mr. Mike Rosales of RoMa Tobac. Mike, how you doing tonight?
That's a great intro, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you so much. I think it was the sip of tequila right before. It just made me feel at ease. It was good.
I saw the whole facial expression change. You kind of loosened up. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
Fucking, excuse my language. You just dipped into it. So
yeah, it's go time, man. No, I have a cup of coffee. I've got one here too. And like I think last week, I was pretty exhausted, and I had Terrence on, and I was like, I had a cup of coffee and I was ready to go, and I took a couple sips and I was like, all right, man, it's go time. And he's like, all right, man. Well, he's like, no worries. And I was like, no, I got this. It's cool. And then I go, it's cool. You go into show mode, man. And it just became a great conversation. I love talking to him, and I'm so excited to talk to you tonight. Welcome back, Mike. It's been way too long since I've had you on. Thank you so much for blessing us with an appearance tonight.
Anytime, I'm always available. Secondly, was Terrence down in Nicaragua still?
No, he like flew back like I want to say 8 hours earlier. Like, I mean, the guy he agreed to do the show. I couldn't believe it. I didn't realize he was going to be back that last minute. It was nuts.
We were together. It was me, him, Dave Lafferty. We just finished dinner. We were at the Nicaraguan Tobacco Festival at the Oliva. Maybe that was Saturday night. So so anyways, so I saw him, and then he must have just headed off to Managua and then flew out because it was like just last weekend. So anyways, so the last time I was on the show, believe it or not, was the Snowmageddon. So we had our taping, and I was at the office, and it started kind of raining and sleeting, and then it froze, and then it snowed, and then it froze again, and then snowed, and then we went without power for like 5 or 6 days. But that night when I left the office was like the beginning of Snowmageddon in Texas.
I remember that, man. It was nuts. That's crazy.
That was wild. Yeah. So we didn't have any power. We were basically, thank God that we had just kind of gone through COVID. So it wasn't like completely, we just kind of camped out in the house, and, I charged everything up electronically that I could. And the power rotated off and on for a couple of days, and the water went out. And then,
that's right. Yeah. You guys were on a boil. You guys were on a boil.
Yeah. We were on a boil watch, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that was wild. That was the last time I was on the show. That was 2021, 2020, in 2020.
Yeah, so 2021, I think. Yeah, man.
It was like January 2021. That's it. Yeah. So good to be back. It's been a while. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The
Well, we were talking about a little bit about collections going into in the green room is kind of leading into the show before I did the countdown. We're going to get back to it because I thought there was an interesting point that I kind of wanted to connect even Romacraft to as well because you'd said something. But before that, we got to get to some business, man. So I've started a new tradition here, Mike, on the show. It's been going on for about a couple years since I guess the last time you were on. But so I allow my guests to pick the cigar that I'm smoking tonight. So I've got some great choices for you. Now there, I will tell you, the last one is the kind of the piece de resistance, but I got some good selections here. It doesn't matter what I have here. It's the choice is yours, and I'm excited to smoke a cigar with you. So let's start off with one of my favorites and one of your favorites, both from the Cro-Magnon Aquitaine family. I've got your favorite size. I got the Anthropology and the Mastodon as a
okay. Yeah.
selection.
All right.
I've got the Baca Bantu.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Got and I'm not as familiar on the sizes here, but I believe it looks like a 5 by 50. So Brother Robusto of the Wanderlust.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. You're
Uh,
leveling up here.
yep, I got some Neanderthals here too. I've got the OXD and then the JCF.
Man, I would say, okay.
Hold
I'm
on,
sure
no
you got
wait,
some more.
that's it.
Oh,
Yeah, one last. This is it. This is the piece de resistance from straight from 2022. I have a sealed box of craft. I have not cracked
you
open yet.
know, oh man. Well, here's the thing. Like, once you crack that open, there's multiple opportunities and options, and
Yeah,
even in that one.
absolutely right.
So you expand it into another five or six different unique
Whole of the
cigars
world,
in
man.
that one.
Whole of the world,
Okay,
yeah.
so oh man, I would say have you had the Wanderlust yet? Have you had it?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
you
I've
just
I've
you
had I've
okay?
had everything, and I've even had an entire box of
Some of
22. This
those
is this is this is this is the third box that I had purchased.
third
So
box. Okay, well then, you know what? Go ahead and smoke the Craft 22, and I'm gonna have you pick one. There's one that I
okay.
want you to pick out. It's because I posted a picture the other day as a hint, something something. So to the guys in the factory,
Mm-hmm.
um, mainly Skip and Alex down there. So it looks like
We go get that box up there one more time.
yeah, Craft
Nice.
22. The so it's mostly um it's got a little bit of striping of Candela, and it has kind of the foot is Connecticut. And so I put a post up the other day, said I wonder what this would taste like with the Pennsylvania broadleaf. So I don't know if
Okay.
you can you see. Let me see.
Striping of Candela, and
Yeah,
yep, that's it. I got it.
right there.
Yep, I
Yeah.
got it.
So if we will it, maybe it will come true. We put that out there in the universe. So it was destined. It's destined to happen.
Perfect, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. Let's do it, man. I love. I've always loved the boxes that you guys have constructed. They've always been some of my favorites. Um, I mean, this is. Are they are they all the same size? Like, are they all the same? I don't even know how to word this correctly. Like, are the boxes all the same thickness? Because I feel like they are, or they're
Ooh.
fairly consistent.
No,
They
I would,
seem fairly
yeah, I
consistent.
mean, I would say that there's with Skip's OCD, and I would say there's probably a center. There's a thickness. I mean, proportionate to each size. Because, like for example, like I know, like the Atlato box, for example, like it's got thinner sides, even though it has like a very stout, same kind of heavy structured kind of feel to it. But it would not be the same. Now, if I went back and looked at the craft boxes, I bet there's a very symmetrical kind of feel to evenness to each one of them, even though they're not necessarily the same length and sizes. Um,
I remember the one with
but
the metal sleeve. I can't remember what year that
yeah,
was, but I remember the metal sleeve. The
that's
first one,
2018. Yeah.
the the first one with the trumpets, still have a box of those.
Oh
or
wow. Yeah.
trompetas or whatever. I'm sure Skip has a different name for it, so I don't mean to
Yeah, no, it's fine.
step up.
Well, there was some variations in the two. The one that was final, there was some kind of after the initial kind of flow, the trompetas kind of came out and they didn't have the covered up foot. And so um yeah, it's kind of going back to that. It's what's crazy is that year we came out with the La Campanas and um then witchcraft, and we had done the femur, and that was a huge, like, I mean there was already a lot of buzz for us and our brand, kind of taking off, kind of coming out of 2012 and then going into 2013, and then there was like this next level kind of jump in 2013. Like people who didn't even know what RoMaCraft was they're talking about the La Campana. They couldn't call it La Campana, but the trumpet,
Yeah,
and
the trumpet. Yeah,
um and then the femur dropped, and then that was just like a next level, um you know holy moly kind of moment. So it's been really, it's been fun. It's each, it's like your kids, right? Like there's these different phases of like when you get a newborn, and what they, they're kind of, you're holding them, they're swaddled up, they're a little bitty, and then they start to smile and they start to coo, and then about 3 months, then they're kind of engaging, and then starting to move a little bit, like there's like these little incremental kind of
yeah,
phases and changes
stages.
that
Yeah,
happen. Yeah. And that's kind of when you reflect back on the brand, it's been like these, also, I think we went from being back behind Esteban's house to opening up the factory, which was a huge kind of momentum kind of shift. And then 2015 we opened up the headquarters in Austin, which was
hmm
another big step in what we were doing. And and kind of getting the build out of that done. And that was probably about a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years before it was kind of finally complete with the bar and everything else. I mean, structurally and functionality wise, it was kind of done pretty early on, but there was just these moments, um, and then you kind of, you get to 2018, you do the crash 2018 with the sleeve, and they were numbered and they were individually kind of done, and
hmm
just kind of taking it to a whole new level. And that was probably like, the apex, the peak, as far as you know um, every cigar shop was trying to open up an account and trying to get on board, and um which is great, right? And the challenge with this kind of slow, steady, methodical kind of growth is you're looking for partners, and that's kind of at the end of the day, like you think back about like Michael's, at Eula's, you spent a lot of time there, and
yeah.
that's where we um
Where it all started.
Tracy and
Mhm.
yeah, Tracy and Jason, and the whole group, right? Like it was just everybody, everyone knew, for the most part, 80% of the consumers that would come into the door, like by name, what they smoked, what they had smoked, what they had tried. And then you had, so like 20% that was like this come and go, grab and go kind of thing. And you guys would do your store picks and you guys would rotate around. Humidor
Mhm.
wasn't really that big, but it had a lot of products and a lot of
Yeah,
different selection and variation in it, right? Um, but you look at how well that, and not to say that Brandon's not doing a great job. I think he's doing an excellent job. But that staff was so unique because you had these guys that just loved tobacco, loved cigars, loved learning, loved smoking cigars, loved the culture, and the consumers that were cultivated along that, kind of grew in the same kind of way, right? Like
sure.
they wanted to buy into what this kind of, this clique and this culture had created, right? And so, um, and that was fun, right? So, but not every cigar shop has that.
Yeah,
Not every, um, and if they did post COVID, there was this shift because, you know, you had furloughs, you had people kind of coming and going, and staff kind of shrunk. You had, you know, owners kind of getting in and doing kind of more of the sales perspective. Um, but also kind of what happened was, you had this, you know, the cigar sales stimulated, right? And all of a sudden, it's like more people outside of the normal kind of cigar group were starting to enjoy and smoke cigars because they had more free time and whatever. Um, but then, kind of post, end of coming out of COVID, end of the year, going into 2021, you have this cash and go kind of mentality. So guys will just go into the humidor without really any help, and then just kind of scoop up the brands that they know and that they're kind of accustomed to, come to the register, check out, and then kind of leave. And you had you know all the people that you had at this one time that were developing this culture who are now doing other things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
that's
so
exactly.
you so if you took just that one store, but then you multiplied it, across 2,500, 3,000 different retail shops across the United States, you had more of that happening. And then it kind of came into more of this self-service bar side experience, um, where it's let me sell you a cocktail, let me sell you a whatever. If you're going to come in and smoke a cigar too, let me sell you a $30-$40 cocktail while you smoke a $20 cigar. And so you've just kind of seen this evolution and change. And so how does that kind of tie back to Roma is we had really done a really good job of kind of picking out shops that were you know like yours, or renegades, or guys that again kind of had that click, you know what I mean? That cigar
Yeah.
click and the cigar culture, right? They kind of fit in with what we were trying to do as far as I mean, let's face it. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of brands that are out there, and there's a lot of people smoking cigars. Um, you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone knows what Roma Craft is, or what Tatuaje is, or what Foundation is, or even Aganorsa, right? Like, as much as a big a company that they are, um, I mean, now if you said, hey, JFR, I'm sure a lot of people know JFR, right? But they
Yeah. A lot
wouldn't
of people
necessarily
smoke
associate.
Aganorsa, just don't know what it is.
They
Yeah.
don't,
No,
right? Yeah,
thousand
and so
percent.
so yeah, and so um, I mean, if you said, "Hey, you remember the Femur, or you remember Cro-Magnon, or you remember whatever," it's like, "Oh, I remember seeing that. I remember hearing about that," but I wouldn't connect two and two together as far as, "Oh, that's from a craft, and this is kind of like the Intemperance brand." Everyone knows Cro-Magnon. A lot of people smoke Neanderthal, right? But do they associate the Intemperance brands with Roma Craft as far as being collectively underneath the same umbrella, right? As one of the brands that we
Yeah,
make, right?
I think that's
So
where the culture that comes in and stuff. Because like that was part of the journey, because I remember having that same discussion. Like, I mean, back before, and I always say that, like, I was selling Robocraft before you guys had labels on the Aquitaine and the Cro-Magnon. So like that's how long I go back to it. And that was always the correlation, because we had Intemperance right above it, so I could talk to them like, hey, you like this, then you like this, or like, back and forth, and talk
sure,
about the correlation there and stuff. So like, but again, if the insert version of me across the shops isn't there to explain that, there, that's that for the new smoker who isn't as indoctrinated as everybody before that. Yeah, I could see where that could be but troublesome and stuff. But I think you bring up a good point. Like, and like you said, you gave some shout out to Brandon there. I think that was Brandon's is a holdover from the old team, I guess, as you kind of mentioned. And it's really great to see him, what he's doing over there at Michael's. And I
yeah.
think
Oh,
even
that's it. We got to shout him out for his baby. They just had their baby.
yeah,
Congratulations! I
absolutely.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fantastic, man. Yeah,
last
I'm so
last week. Yeah.
so excited for him and Kelly. It's good stuff. But
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to go back to, and I think this can kind of correlate a little bit. We were talking a little bit about collections before we get into tonight's major point and everything, but we're getting into collections, and this is a little short digression to get to the point I was going to make about cigars and the market today. But I mean, when we first became friends years ago, Mike, you and I were both into beer,
Yeah.
quite a bit. I don't drink it very much anymore. I know you don't either, but then it became bourbon for both of us too. But now I recently found out, like, just a few moments ago before the show started, you've been off the bourbon too, man. So, what are you
Well,
gonna do with that amazing collection?
I'm gonna force feed it to people as they come in and visit. I mean, I think
Sounds terrible.
yeah. Well, I've always said that whether it's beer, whether it's spirits, or any kind of bourbon, or even coffee, right? Like, that's kind of that's been my new kind of thing over the last couple of years, is really, and that's kind of helped me with um So first I'll start off with, um, for whatever reason, when I drink a beer or two, like I'm gaining 10 pounds. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I just, for some reason, I see guys that drink beer all day long and they're, as skinny as I'll get out. And for some reason, like if I drink a beer, like it just, and so that was one of the things that I kind of cut out, right? When I was trying to, kind of come down in weight. And, then I found bourbon and I really liked, and that was all pre-COVID. What's really funny, um, throughout, so I did in 2015, I was in Jersey and one of the shops out there, Berkeley, had a vertical of Pappy's. And I didn't even know what Pappy's was back then, right? And he's like, yeah, I got, they apparently he had, down and underneath, he was like, I love wine, but I buy everything that they send me. And um, this is the same guy that helped Bill Ives out in Juan Cancel. And
Right.
so,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
but this is way before that even happened, right? So he built like a barn and he's like, hey, if we do this event, you come out, we'll have a ticketed event. We want to do like a launching of this of our kind of the smoke room that we're doing. And really cool kind of concept. He's like, I'm gonna throw in a bunch of, we'll do a bourbon kind of pairing. And so anyways, so you scroll back to your pictures and it's like, there was 15 and 23, lot B, so I mean he just had like, and whenever I left, he handed me a 2015 George T. Stagg bottle. I mean, he was just giving bottles away. He's like, I can't sell it, can't give it away, but I buy it, whatever, right? And he gave me so we had opened up a bottle of 4 grain E.H. Taylor. Back in the day. I mean, the point of that is to say is like at one point in time, just like with everything, you couldn't give bourbon away. And I look back to some of my pictures of some of the bourbons that I've gotten to share that, I had no business drinking because I couldn't, I didn't appreciate it. I was probably like, oh my God, it's so hot, it's killing me. I mean, like, oh,
Oh, that
can I
burn.
get some, can I get some water, or whatever, right? I probably asked for some ice cubes and embarrassed myself. I mean, I didn't know, right? So, um, but now if I was to go back and go, hey man, you got some of that 4 grain, they'd be like, nah, dude, I'm gonna sell that shit for $1,000. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's funny how it just changed. And so
Hmm.
you just cracked open a box of Craft 2022. You know, do we see the appreciation in boxes of I don't remember how many we did of that box, but let's say it's 1,200 or 1,000, two
Yeah.
thousand. But would somebody come around and offer you a couple $1,000 for that box? You know, even though it's been sold out for 2 or 3 years now.
I don't know. Didn't think about it. I was gonna smoke it,
No, no, no. I'm
so
just saying, like
but
we were
yeah,
talking about, like I don't. I mean, I think that there are some cigars that I mean, obviously, I think Fuente's done a really good job. People pay a lot of money for I saw a website selling Rare Pinks individual cigars for like $95 a cigar. Um, on their website, I've seen so maybe there's some Tatuaje stuff out there that's floating around, but and don't get me wrong. I mean, I know that there are people who will track down our stuff. I just don't know if it and maybe I'm naive to it because I don't really pay attention that closely to like what the secondary market is for certain boxes. Like meaning, you ask me what I'm going to do with a rare bottle. Someone comes in, I'm going to crack it open and we're going to try it,
yeah,
right?
nice.
No questions asked, no second thoughts, no whatever. It is what it is. I bought it, even if I paid over, or I traded something for it or whatever. It's fair game. I mean, I think I got like one bottle. It's an OFC bottle. It's a 25-year bottle that will stay up and um, but that's kind of off limits. But everything else, for the most part, um, But that's the fun part of the experience is getting to share that bottle with somebody who's like, oh man, I've never seen that, or I've always wanted to try that, and
Right.
I have it. Then I absolutely want to crack it open and pour a glass and just kind of have that moment with that person. I think that's the coolest part about the bottle shares,
Oh,
even in
absolutely.
beer.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I think that the special part of bourbon too, like we were talking about Eagle Rare before the show started, and like how, when we started drinking bourbon, that was a $40 bottle, and that was like, man, this is a good deal. This is great. This is now you get it for 70. It's like that's obnoxious. And so there's a lot of people
Yeah.
who are starting into that bourbon journey, who are like, "Oh, Eagle Rare, that looks and sounds really good. I've heard good things about it," but they can't afford it. And then you happen to have a couple of like you have a case or a couple of bottles that you've been laying around for a while, and you're like, to you, it's still a $40 bottle, and it's just like, well, heck yeah, man, let's crack this open, and it is special, whether it's something rare, something not. But you said something interesting to me too that I thought was kind of I wanted to pair back to my selling days and the way like the way, where Roma Craft was in the market at the time, and actually to point of fact still is, despite what prices have done. And everyone's had price increases, and that's my point. So I don't want this to be taken out of context too much. But like when I started selling Cro-Magnon, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike, but I remember I felt like the MSRP was like either 8.99 or 9.99 for the cranium, and now it's 11.99 or whatever it is, right? And
Yeah.
at the time, it was really great for like the people who were like, I want Liga Privada #9, but I don't want to spend $15 on a cigar. Now that seems kind of funny, right? Like I want to spend
But
$15. I'm
yeah.
like, you're not gonna be
Yeah.
smoking much. But at the time, it was like, okay, well, here's something you haven't heard of. Here's an alternative, and it was a great for me. My own personal opinions of Liga Privada aside, like for me, I thought it was a obviously a different profile cigar, different flavors, similarities in tobaccos, but it was a great way to pivot, bring awareness to the brands that we were just talking about, and then also help out the customer too. So it was really win-win. And then but that correlation still exists because now like Liga Privadas are in the higher, almost hitting the 20s, even with
Yeah.
y'all's price increase.
Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
same. The
Sure.
numbers are different, but it's the same distinction. So
Sure.
like to our point about how the evolution of the new smokers coming into the humidor, they can still that comparison still exists, which is nice.
Yeah. So I mean, so I look at it like so you look at like Russell's Reserve number 10, right? It's a 10-year bourbon, probably $45. It's available. It's a it's made by um Brown Foreman. I don't know. Somebody can
Yeah.
correct me.
I
But
got I got
it's
a bottle of the rye right here, so
there you go. Yeah. So it's steady, right? Sub
mhm.
$50, bottle. Um, and I think that's but you know, at the end of it, when it comes down to it, if somebody says, "Man, I can't afford um, getting into a hobby or a culture," then and I guess there's some age that has to kind of like if my 18-year-old son or 21-year-old son, he's not 18 yet, he's about to be 18, but let's in theory 21 now is the legal age. If he said I couldn't afford to smoke a cigar, or drink beer or bourbon, then I'm like, good, because you're not, from a parent perspective, right? But I mean
Good.
yeah.
Good.
But
Since you
if
still
the
have my
if
credit card, that's a good
yeah,
call. That's a good
yeah,
call.
it's but I mean, if you want to grow, you still want people to feel like they're welcome, right? And I think like people poop all over Fat Bottom Betty and some of the flavor stuff, Moon Trance and other things. But I think on one hand, if it allows if there's an entry point that allows people to kind of get in and they say, you know what, that wasn't too bad. What's the next step? And they go to their tobacconist and say, well, I had this, what's the next progression? Right. It's like same thing with beer. Like, so you start off with a light beer or, uh, Blue Moon with a big old orange, right? It's whatever. And they say, okay, now I want to progress over to, what's the next, you're not going to jump from that to an Imperial Stout. You might go to a lager, you might go to, some kind of progression point before you're
Right.
like, hey, let me get that, you know, uh, uh, I don't know what the uh, old Rasputin or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're just not gonna make that kind of jump.
Old granddad to Pappy. Yeah, it's just not happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not. But you want it to be welcoming. You want it to be available. You want it to because at the end of the day, I mean, on the other side of that, there are people who stop enjoying the culture or stop coming into lounges and stop coming into the liquor stores or stop coming into. And so you've got to be able to feed, and grow, and take someone on that journey and say, okay, hey man, so this pairs really well with that.
Right.
This is the evolution of your progression to get you into, you know, and then what comes with that is like, man, now you're going to need to get a cigar box. You know, you got a little travel humidor. You're going
Right.
to need a cutter and a lighter. You know, you can't keep, mooching the, you can't keep walking off with the lounge's lighters. You know what I mean? Like you're going to need to get your own lighter. Um, and so
Chain those
that's,
suckers down, man. That's the only solution to
yeah,
that.
and but to me, what is that? That's what, when Skip and I sat down and we talked about the names of like what's Cro-Magnon. It was like this culture. You know what I mean? It was like it was all about getting together with your buddies and saying, okay, let's go out to Snows this weekend and go check out the pit out there, or let's go out to Louis Mueller's, or let's go out to I don't know, Blacks, or and basically on the weekends we would get together with 10, 15 guys, and then we kind of make the rounds, eat some barbecue, get fat and happy, and then sit in Skip's garage because he had a man cave, and it was like, what is this culture really all about, right? It's about the fellowship, it's about the camaraderie, it's about being together, and that's what Cro-Magnon, as how does that relate to like the brands and what we were trying to do? That's kind of that kind of piece that kind of brought it all together, right? So
Yeah.
but going back to like stores and lounges, if we lose that um onboarding of new consumers and customers and getting them bought in and making them feel welcome and making them feel like they don't have to walk over and grab a $30 cigar to enjoy the culture
Mm-hmm.
of cigars, then it'll start to shrink. You know what I'm saying? Like
1,000%. Yeah,
um,
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah. I think that's the one thing that I think is going to start to trouble the cigar industry and other industries too. So it's not like this is a unique issue. Like as prices continue to go up and everything, on a lot of different areas. But that'll take us into tonight's major point, Mike, which is always brought to you by the people. Yes, cigar people, the people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it
is
is.
it?
But
Is it?
behind the fun is a motivation for service, exactly. A motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blues to the latest release in the Lawman series, BB Cousins, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's always what their life's work is always and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. We mentioned Berkeley's a minute ago, where they all got started. Juan and Bill, those guys, and now Juan and Kevin are carrying that legacy on, and it's good stuff. So, but what we were talking about here, Mike, just kind of going back to the beginning, you mentioned Cro-Magnon. We're going to get into the evolution of Cro-Magnon here in a little bit, but let's not forget. I mean, the origin of Cro-Magnon was with you. Was Adrian's Cro-Magnon. That was the OG, man. Back in I remember smoking that when it was Adrian's.
Well,
And
it was Adrian's kind of from an import perspective. But yeah, I mean, it was nothing had really been developed. It was a cigar. It was an idea. It was you know yeah. I mean, what's funny. So at the time here in Austin, um, I want to say it was Raul. So Raul Disla, who now runs Natsa, worked for me in Texas, and he was at Heroes and Legacies, which was crazy because I just ran into Richard Hutchinson, who owned Heroes and Legacies. And those who don't know, it was like a Diamond Crown Lounge here in Austin.
yeah,
Back when Diamond Crown used to have like a, I think they still may, I don't know, that they have like a, basically any Diamond Crown Lounge. If you're a member of that, you can kind of go to any other Diamond Crown lounges across the United States. And so he had one, and so Raul had come to the States and was making cigars, and at the time, um, you know, I had run into Skip, and we kind of knew that we knew a lot of the same people, and started kind of getting closer and hanging out and kind of doing these other kind of barbecue things. And um, so anyway, so he he brought over the last of some cigars that he had gotten from Christian before they had sold to Davidoff, and he said, "Hey, this used to be one of my favorite cigars, and I've only got a handful left." And so we had dissected it and took it apart, and unfortunately here in Texas, I mean, I didn't have um, a a super wide range of different types of tobaccos that we were working out here out of cigar shops, right? And but I said, if you will let me, I'll Esteban Raul's brother, who was running Natsa at the time. I said, I got to go visit him. We got to buy some tobacco and work on some other things. And so we called Esteban, kind of started talking about what we thought the blend was when we took the cigar apart, and kind of had a baseline. We kind of working on that, and that was, I want to say, fall of 2010. And so anyway, so we'd gone down and started working on the cigar, and um, made some tweaks, and so I imported it in. And so at the time, the my son Adrian, I had a cigar brand here that I was making out of Costa Rica called Adrian's Costa Rican Cigars, and and so on paper, yeah, it was an Adrian's Costa Rican cigar, but it was imported out of Nicaragua. But the
Yeah.
company name was Adrian's, and Costa Rican imports. And so it's also cool to see Costa Rica kind of getting a lot, because you mentioned United. So the same factory out of Putascal, Costa Rica was, I did a lot of work with them, 07, 08. It was such a small operation. To kind of see them grow is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and because they're not just doing United, they're doing, I mean, I go down a whole laundry list of other brands they're doing out of that
Hmm.
factory now. So anyway, um, there was a guy out of Virginia who started a magazine, and as soon as we get off, it's gonna come to me. Anyways, they rated the knuckle dragger under Adrian's. So I want to say like the knuckle dragger got like a 91, 92 right off the rip as a cigar rating. And so anyway, so that's whenever Skip and I kind of really just kind of sat down and were like, hey, we've got to make this a little bit more formal. So we came up with what was called Roma Craft, and Rosales and Martin, and then
Hmm.
kind of built a company. The But yeah, so that's kind of the origin story of how that came about.
It's crazy. I mean, because I
So,
remember those. I mean, I don't remember the story, obviously, because I wasn't around, but like I remember Adrian's. I remember that you started in Costa Rica. You actually, this is something I just recently learned. Um, and you gotta tell me this. So, like, I know you graduated from OU in 2000. And
mhm.
did you go to study at in university in
Yeah,
Costa Rica after?
that's no, before that. So that's
Before?
so a couple things. So my degree is in communication, and I was going to OU, and I wanted an opportunity to do a foreign exchange program. And so the you're gonna need some more of that coffee, bro.
Yeah,
The
sorry.
That's okay. The So anyway, so I went to Costa Rica and did my first kind of stint was about 9 months, and then came back, finished my degree in 2000, went back and started my master's program at the Latina, University Latina, which is in San Pedro. And then my dad got sick, um, like pretty bad, and then so I ended up coming back home, and then and then when I came back, that's it just kind of, I needed to be closer because I wasn't sure what was going to happen with him, and so and then quickly after that, kind of transitioned and went into real estate, and so that's kind of why from 2000, uh, kind of May of 2000 until, I mean, I'm still technically a broker in Texas, but I keep my license. I don't really practice, but um, so I was doing that, and then so about in 2004, a friend of mine was getting married, and his family were developing. They had some land, and so they wanted to develop something. And so I talked him into, instead of just selling the land, I said, "Why don't you build something?" And so we built 16 condos. Um, and during that time, I started bringing people to Costa Rica to kind of look at the condos and traveling back and forth, as well as people would ask me about bringing cigars back. Um, from there. And and at that time, I was just casually kind of smoking nothing. I had my first cigar my graduation night in 2000 with my dad.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah. And,
Well,
and
that's a cool
so,
connection. Your first cigar was also the reason you came back, which was the impetus of the kind of the
yeah,
beginning and stuff. That's neat.
yeah. So for me, like, the cigar industry was not even really on my radar. And then, so I started and people would come in. I started getting cigar boxes made from this family that was making cigars down there, and then I would give them away as gifts, right? So that was kind of the introduction, So every once in a while I'd have a cigar, but on the weekends they would feed me, and we would, they would make paella, and they would do all kinds of stuff, and I'd hang out. And they had a son that
Sounds
wanted
rough.
to come, that that wanted to come to the States. Really couldn't do anything. He knew how to make cigars, and so I got with Richard, and from Heroes and Legacies, and said, "Hey, would you be interested in bringing a cigar roller?" We brought him over, and then got him kind of, sponsored him, and then Raul came over, and then I had Danilo, and and I think there was one more, and then after that, it got to the point to where, so Danilo had gone to Houston and was working with Stogies down in Houston, and then he was up in Dallas at Elite with Kent Pennington, and then Raul had focused on uh, doing the cigars out of the Heroes and Legacies, and so he kind of rotated, and so everything was really going well. I mean, the challenge really was is that kind of getting back and forth to Lubbock was really difficult, and then kind of getting everyone, like finding room and board and getting them to and from, especially out of these different areas, was really difficult. And then kind of the S chip law that went into effect in 2007, between 2007 and 2000, really 2010, because technically once the cigars are made, you import in under a raw tobacco, you have to convert them, and technically you're a manufacturer, even if you are, especially if they're selling them. And so, um, anyways, long story short, by that time, Skip and I were really kind of working on, kind of getting the Roma Craft up and going, and so when we launched at the trade show, I was really kind of all done with all the rollers, but it was
Nice.
fun. It was a learning experience. I mean, it really, taught me a lot as far as like buying tobacco and making sure that the stuff that you buy, that that you put your name on, is what it's supposed to be, and not
Yeah.
getting screwed over and all that other stuff. And so, I mean, that's all still the same. That game still happens. That hasn't changed. It's
Yeah, I was
still,
gonna say that sounds pretty familiar.
yeah.
With the
So
processes you guys currently go under and stuff. I think that's what's I mean a couple things that's really cool there, just kind of things to know. Like you said you keep up the real estate part, even though you don't really practice and stuff. I know your good friend and trusted partner down in Florida, Mike Stefankevich, does it too.
mhm.
I found that out
Yeah.
a couple shows ago that I had him on, and because I kind of stumbled across a listing that he had under his name, and I was like, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
do it for shits and stuff." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, I mean, uh, so like I feel like the military background, musician background, real estate background is like that's like the starting package if you want to start a cigar brand. Those three professions seem to kind of lead the way into cigars somehow.
Well,
But
I don't know if you know this or not, but I think Sean Williams has a real estate background.
yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
I
mean,
checked that as well.
I mean, I would, so realistically, I would say, I mean, it's a handful, but you're right. I mean, it's not. There's definitely this other, like these other industries definitely kind of produce a lot more introductions into the cigar industry
Well,
versus,
Spence Drake was too, like, and he's back in that game too. But yeah, he did that
yeah,
for a while.
he was on the finance side. I don't know if he
Yeah,
sold houses. I mean, he might have, but I think he was on the finance side. But yeah.
yeah, crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I think that that's a dude I miss out of the industry, man.
He's one of my faves,
He's
dude.
another one. Yeah, he's a good dude, man. Really
Had him
good
on my
dude.
show a few
So
times, man. I really liked the cigars that he produced. The last one he did, I ironically was my favorite that he ever did, the Illegal. I thought that was fucking fire. That cigar was amazing. It's something too. Like I remembered we had talked about this, and I never, for some reason, I just never connected the dots over the years because I knew your connection to OU. Also knew where you were born and raised in Austin or was from.
no,
But like,
I was in Oklahoma City, yeah, but lived here in
okay,
Austin. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, was that painful to move into Longhorn country? I mean, did you feel like you were betraying your soul a little bit, or
No, not at all. I mean, what's funny is so back then, I mean, Austin was a little bitty. I mean, it's grown tremendously, right? I mean, like if you were to look at Flower Mountain, like how much Flower Mountain has grown,
no
you
shit?
know,
Yeah,
you know,
places like
um, it's wild, right? Like, so I mean,
yeah,
Austin, I mean, and that's a much smaller kind of, but you look at like, Euless and Flower Mound and kind of, where, it all has blended in together, right? So I mean,
yeah,
Austin's kind of the same thing, right? So, um, no, I mean, what's funny is they were so the first year or two, like people would walk around and be like, fuck OU, and they would talk shit, right? And then OU goes on this tear and we're just fucking 63-10, like just blowing them out, right? And then they stopped talking. And then, Texas kind of went through this whole thing where they were kind of firing coach after every 2 or 3 years because they couldn't get it done. And then so the chirping, it's still like I'm waiting for it to really come back because it's because they've gotten progressively better. I think sarcasm on a good trajectory, but no, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But it used to be
Yes.
the first year or two, man. Like I walk around the mall and someone's like trying to fight me. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, dude, so I just say, man, what year did you graduate? You must be a really proud graduate. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
no,
you're
I
taking it
never
that
went.
serious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
never went.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was always my joke about the difference between OU Sooners and UT Longhorn fans. Is that OU Sooner fans actually attended the University of Oklahoma, and UT fans never did attend UT.
yeah,
It was like clockwork. Remember, so like I think it was around the time that Roma Craft started, but the like late 2000s to the early aughts, like there was a real popular color for trucks back at least down here in Texas was the burnt orange, right? And man, I could see one of those burnt orange trucks driving down the highway, decked out in UT stickers and stuff. I was like, man, I bet every fucking dime in my bank account that guy never went to UT. Every freaking time, man. It's crazy. The amount of fans that I knew growing up to, and still know to this day that are UT fans and like did not go to the school, and I just don't get it. I'm like,
well,
it's
you're a
crazy.
big baseball guy, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so what's the Dallas team? It's
The Rangers,
that
the
just
Rangers.
won,
Yeah, the Rangers.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
How much apparel did you get see after they
Oh, of
won?
course. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
like
No,
all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, it's like there's a sea of people wearing this shit, this color and gear and stuff. That's like never even probably have been to a game, never really paid attention to it, but
oh yeah,
you know, you
thousand
know,
percent, thousand
so
percent.
so, but it's fun. It's a great uh it's definitely well. And what's really listen, I love college football. So when Texas is playing better, USC is playing better. When Nebraska, when they get their shit together and they're playing better, like I think those programs are good for college football. If you're a college football fan, and I could watch any I just love watching college football, right? So I'm not really much into pros, but um there's definitely there are programs that whenever they're winning or they're doing better or they're in the chase or the hunt, right? Like it just makes the game that much more exciting, right? So
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. So you are obviously you guys found the company, Roma Crafts back slowly, like you mentioned, the slow methodical build, and have built up this company now that's t post 10 years of existence. You mentioned Raul and Esteban and everything. I kind of what that kind of is a nice little segue into the Quinquagenario project. You guys have built this factory. You've started in Esteban's house and then built the factory in Nico Sueño. And then now I've even added on to it too. So you guys have even expanded it to this point, which is just crazy to think where you started. I mean, a little over a decade ago, and now you're expanding your first factory and everything. So, and then,
so,
and then
so just to kind of give you an idea, I don't know how much you know or not, but so the factory is the same, and then probably about 2 kilometers away is this new bodega that's on the Pan
the
American
pre-industry
Highway.
building. Oh, okay,
The
gotcha. Okay,
pre-industry building. So
okay,
it's not that the actual factory, because the factory's kind of landlocked in where it's at. So it can't, unless we were to build up somehow, like that's the only way that we'd be able to do that. But
gotcha. Okay,
the but as far as like the pre-industry, and I just got back there. So what it's the last time that I was there and we were working on those types of things in SLE, it just started. And then all of I think the only time I went to Nicaragua was I was actually just down in San Juan. I don't actually think we went up to Esteli, if that's right. Um, or I didn't go to Nicaragua at all. And so to get a chance to kind of see it and the amount of tobacco that's there, and um, because what's funny, like my schedule kind of bleeds over. Like I think last year, I think TPE was on the same weekend or pretty close to um, for the Nicaraguan Tobacco Festival, and
For
then
support. Yeah, it was like
yeah,
2 days. It was like a day turnaround with the day
yeah, just
overlap.
just like this year, right? Like it was like one and the other, but I didn't go to TPE this year, um, so it's kind of like you always got to make like these things and sacrifices of the things that you go to. It's either I got to be here or I got to go there, and someone like Oscar who bounces around is pretty impressive just because he's just
It's everywhere.
he's everywhere. But I think that but to see it kind of in motion and to see like how well it was put together, man, it's definitely um it's doing really well. Alex is kind of head of bodega in tobacco purchasing, is doing a really good job. He came over from Oliva and is just doing a really good job of making sure that everything is neat, organized, in place, and has done a really good job of kind of the nice thing about it is like a lot of the things that they were doing inside the factory we can now do over in these other areas, and so you don't have as many people working inside the factory. So
Hmm.
because I do know the last time I was down there, man, you couldn't there was just so much movement and activity. You had to sidestep to kind of get around people and not overstep. And but now that you think about, like, we've added since last year, we've added UPCs on every different SKU.
Yes. God bless you.
So
God bless you, sir. Yes.
yeah, well, one, I don't know if people realize like how big of an expense that is.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
but on the flip side, I also understand like as far as like losing turns from a retail store, like for someone to pull every cigar out, then tag them, and then put them back in the box and put them in the system and then put them over. It's like it might take you know um a week or two before someone actually gets to it and starts putting them away. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it definitely has helped in getting turns on the shelf, um, which is nice, I think, for everybody. But again, you think about all kind of leading into quinquagenario, right? So I mean, I think one of the things that we kind of took away from in that visit was the how organized Ernie had done a really cool job of making sure that when they went into packaging, they had a kind of chief operating lady who was designed. Hey, we're gonna package, cigar, whatever, then she would basically get a mock box, hand it to them and say, okay, these are the things that you need, from the vista, which is like the insert, to ribbon color, to the cigar labels, to UPC codes, to Bovida if it went in there, and essentially would give them everything that they needed, like a checklist, to then go into packaging. And
Got it.
so when they would say, okay, we're going to do X amount of cigars today, and this, to getting into packaging and then getting ready for the shipment, that person was in charge to make sure that all the inventory was done correctly and that everything was packaged the way that it needed to be done. And so I think um, from a visual perspective, getting to see the operation kind of happen allowed us to kind of say, okay, because we were kind of in that transition of saying, okay, we're going to do this. Like we already had made the decision to get the UPCs done, but it was really more of an execution. Like, how do we do it within the space? And so now, um, all of the UPCs and marketing material that kind of get ready for the boxes, everything goes into the bodega, gets counted, and then from there gets shipped over and transitioned into the factory. So then that way, there's a way to maintain count and consistency and quality.
That's that's awesome. I think what was a really cool opportunity, must have been really cool for Skip, was to have the opportunity to get under the tutelage and explore the mind of someone like Ernesto, which you know you and Skip have kind of come up into this industry really quickly. Skip has moved down there. He's in the factory regularly, worked really closely with Esteban for years. And now Alex, obviously. What what has that been transition been like moving from, Esteban, who you guys were, partners with for years, to Alex? I mean, Alex's resume speaks for itself. Like you said, he came from Oliva Tobacco, which is Oliva Tobacco, not Oliva Cigar Company, for those out there who are uninformed.
Well,
But I
yeah,
mean, it's
the other way. He came from that he actually did come from the
he actually
Oliva
that's right. Excuse me. Yeah.
from the Oliva. Yeah.
So
So
this is why it needs
correct.
explaining because even I get
There
confused.
are two. There are two.
Yeah.
So here's, I mean, the reality of it is that I think kind of going into COVID, um, I mean, the factory was running smoothly as it was. Um, and and then obviously whenever COVID, the shutdown happened, Arlen and Fiorella and Skip were here, I don't know, 6, 7 months. Probably from March, April until I want to say December. Um, just because, I mean, I think at the time, even American Airlines, United had stopped flying into Managua, right? So it had made it difficult. And so anyway, so then long story short, I think um, kind of seeing, this loss of interest and loss of whatever, it just wasn't a way to say, you know what, I think, you know, um, some changes needed to be done. We had to make some changes. Some people didn't want to make the changes that were necessarily due as far as um, I'll tell you like this. In Austin, for example, if I said, hey, I want to give Bear and the team at Euless, I write down every cigar that comes out. Like there's a checklist of, this is what I did, this is what I gave it to, this is why, right? And not because no one not trusts me to do whatever, but there's a financial fiduciary relation that you have to treat the company, like a business, right? It's not your personal kind of whatever. And so, long story short, I think that because the hands have been taken off the wheel for a little while, and then putting the hands back on the wheel for a little bit, it just was some friction, and so it was like, what, this it's time for us to, and I think that he wanted to grow tobacco, and I think that he was spending a lot of time out in the tobacco fields, and so it was like, listen, like we'll set you up, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, you've done a good job, and your family's been a big part of this, and so we amicably decided to kind of uh, go different directions.
Okay.
And at that time, I think that um, you know, getting getting to go over to see how some of these other factories were, because realistically, Skip and I were looking at, we got to buy land, we need to expand the factory. We just weren't sure which was the right way to go about that, right? And
Mhm.
um, every and whether or not, I don't know how much people kind of get into it with you on the show or not, but for the reality of it is, money gets sent down, it goes into this machine, cigars come out, you sell the stuff, you pay taxes on it, and then whatever's left over, you send it right back to the factory, and it's
Yeah.
rinse and repeat, right? Like it's just, um, but the reality of it is that it was Skip and I that were putting the money in, that were continuing to make the thing kind of go. And so to get everyone on board to say, okay, if we're going to make these financial investments to go to the next level, then it's going to take significant amount of capital to do that. And so, when I'm not going to do that, and you're going to do that, and who's going to do that, and where Skip and I work really, really well together. We always have, and so it was just, listen, go do your thing and grow the best tobacco. We'll be your number one customer. Come in and we'll always kind of lean on you to make sure that if there's a question that we have that makes sense. And actually the his once the factory was kind of running, the factory's running. You have people in place that are kind of chief head department of this, chief head department of that. And so everyone's kind of doing their job, and you just kind of come in, you kind of check on them to make sure everything is kind of running the way it needs to. The the tobacco buying and selecting and everything else was definitely kind of his skill set. And so, early on we set up a thing. It's like, hey, we'll pay you, a commission to go out and make sure that you're buying the best available of what we're doing, because this has your name and legacy on it, right? Like your imprint is on here, your DNA is on this, so you want to make sure that this is still going in the best direction possible. So,
Sure.
um, and you can still make money. So it worked out really well for him. And so now he's got I think 4 different growing operations, is doing
Oh,
very well.
wow.
And so,
Okay.
uh,
Good for him. Good for him.
I think, but going to see, the operation in the Dominican and kind of going around and seeing other, a couple things happen. One, because when you're kind of in Nicaragua, we don't really have any business really in the Dominican. So it was really kind of neat to see people come over and kind of give us respect from Roma Craft. It's like, oh man, because they don't get to see our cigars as often unless they're going into the States, right? And so to have people come up and go, hey, I've heard about them, I've never had them, I want to try them or whatever, or that was kind of neat, right? To see
Nice.
people kind of, because it goes both ways. I mean, I'm always constantly, um, I like what Ventura is doing. Um, me, I'm a cigar consumer, right? So I smoke everybody's cigars. And so, but then kind of going into Ernie's facility and kind of to, one, I think the bigger thing you kind of notice immediately is the amount of space that they have. We don't have space, right? So, um, so that was something that I think was kind of the obvious kind of like, oh man, I wish we had this much room. Um, Number one. Number two, um, his team is great. So from Mikey and everyone down, I think they just do a fantastic job. They're all on the same page. Really hardworking people, um, and they work, um, with this efficiency level that um, oftentimes you don't see uh, in at a speed at a pace like you would in Nicaragua. Um, and so that was kind of like meaning like if we could take 2 or 3 of his guys and come down and have them trying to train in Nicaragua, that would be great. Because I would do it in a heartbeat. Um, then, obviously, I think we took some ideas from as we kind of started setting up the bodegas because we had gone in and we made this investment on tobacco, and so getting that's what Skip does is he's definitely about the flow design and concept, and then kind of but integrating it into kind of our systems, and so really 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 impressed with how well right now the factory and the bodega. I mean, so much so that we were nominated Factory of the Year, post Esteban, and then recently, Company of the Year. So, which I don't really. I mean, those are really big honors, and so to have kind of these people within the industries to kind of recognize what you're still doing is that you're
Yeah,
still on the same path is really cool.
because I mean, those are some big changes. I mean, like it or not, if it's even if it's for the betterment of the company, those are some big changes, and to still kind of persevere and make through, and then actually get recognized for it too. I mean,
Sure,
that's pretty. I mean, that's got to be a feather in the cap for people all around and everything. To go back to the Quinquagenario project. So again, it's to commemorate. And if I'm misquoting here, Mike, you can obviously correct me. But if it's to commemorate the
sure.
50th birthday of Skip, and then but it's meant to be a series, or at least that's the way it was explained to me. So
Sure.
there'll
Yeah.
be one for you.
Yeah.
Uh, when you catch up to Skip's ripe old age. No, I'm just kidding. All kidding.
It's funny. When we started the project when he was 49, and it technically didn't get released until about 2 months after he turned 51. So that
Right.
means, by all accounts, sometime after March, I'll have to start working on mine if I want it to be released by the time I'm actually 50. So,
Yeah.
um, so there we
Uh,
go.
is that something? I mean, I mean, I know that was really exciting for Skip, and I think it was for me. I really enjoyed watching him post about it and things like that because I'm a big Ernesto fan as well, and you could almost like see um a again without sounding diminutive of it, just a very childlike curiosity and satisfaction and just joy. It was almost like this rekindled joy. I know Skip and you love what you do, but it was really kind of cool to see that and to see the beginnings of this project, like for him to start sharing about it and stuff and everything. I mean, has it been similar for you? I mean, that's got to be. I mean, because you've been smoking cigars, like you haven't been smoking cigars as long as Skip has, but I mean, this has been a. I mean, I mean, this is your life. This is your passion. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time too. And I mean, to work
Yeah.
with a legend like Ernesto, I mean, that had to be exciting for you as well.
No, I think it is. I think that so one, yes, to answer your question, I think that there definitely was this rekindled joy. We went from having conversations of, well, if Esteban's not here to do this, do we shut everything down? What's option, A, B, and C? What, like what? Because you didn't know, right?
Right.
You didn't, so and you, we're constantly talking about how do we improve, how do we get better, how do we um, dial in, how do we fine tune, you know, um, whether it's quarterly, monthly, yearly, like you're constantly having these types of conversations, and so, um, but to see Skip get to work with Ernesto, ask questions, but then also to validate some of the things that he's been able to learn along his journey, rekindle um, this excitement was really something that I think quite honestly came at the right time, right? Like it came, as a um, one kind of a vindication and or not vindication, but more of a affirmation of like, hey, we're on the right track. We've already done all the hard work, right? Like it's, um, you know, no, I mean, to be honest, I mean, to go out and put your name on, $500,000 worth of tobacco and you hope that they sell you what they told you it was going to get, and you come in and it's a miss, that still hurts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
so,
God. Yeah.
um, meaning, from again, because I mean, um, I'll put it this way: if I called Apple Computer and I said, "Hey, I need 1,000 computers with this much RAM on this size computer with this much spec, and I need it to be this kind of processor, and I needed to, whatever, right? All of the things that I needed to do. Guess what I'm going to get in 3 or 4 days, maybe five, right? I'm going to get a pallet full of 1,000 computers, exactly to the spec, exactly to what
Yeah.
I asked for, to the T, right?
Yeah. You're not getting.
Um,
You're not going to get Dells. You're going to get the Apple. Yeah. Experience. Exactly.
yeah, and quite honestly, they're going to be perfectly packaged. It's going to be, you know, um, it's going to be to my specifications. Well, to be quite honest, I mean, um, we were really spoiled in the fact that before the kind of the boom, we were able to really buy pretty much everything exclusively through the Oliva Tobacco family, kind of pay them a little extra, and then they would work the tobacco 100%. And then as we needed it, we could bring it over because our space wasn't big enough, and then we could kind of utilize. And if so, if there was something wrong, you're in the same room to go, hey, this isn't, in the processing moment, this either just go back in a little bit longer, or it's too whatever, or this isn't quite what I thought we were going to get, and they would just do a switch on the fly, or make an adjustment on the fly. But once you have this kind of accelerated kind of growth in the tobacco industry, and everyone's like, hey, just give me tobacco, right?
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden it's like that, hey, we don't have the space and the ability and the manpower to kind of work, you know, this tobacco that you're doing. And so it kind of forced us into like, hey, you gotta start, you know, buying and then working it yourself. And you got to make sure that, as well as you want to make sure that you have, as we were able to reinvest in the tobacco that we were doing, it's like, the buys are getting bigger, the space is getting larger, because now you might have 5 or 6 years worth of tobacco of something that you bought because you got a good deal on it or whatever, but you still got to store it somewhere, right?
Right.
And so, you can't just park that in somebody else's place. It's like, having one of your buddies come over, and then they're like, it was going to be a weekend kind of thing, and all of a sudden, they're staying there for 6, 8 weeks or whatever, and you're like, bro,
Well,
you got to
for the
get a.
record, if you want to store your bourbon collection at my house, Mike, I've got a place for you. I've got a place
I
for you.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So again, the transition, the investments that we were making, the growth that we were having, and all this other stuff kind of forced us into this expansion of the bodegas, which actually worked out to our favor. At the
Right.
time, it was really difficult because it's a lot of money that you got to fork up front. But you'd rather have it, but it kind of forced you into making sure that you knew this process, right? It kind of forces you into understanding, how long something can sit in the polone, and how long can you, how to store, all the things that you got to do that you got to make sure you ironed out to make sure that you're not getting mold on tobacco, or you're not getting, it's not rotting in a pack or whatever it is, right? Like you just got to
Mhm.
make sure you're on top of those things. And so to make that transition without someone like Esteban, who um, would have been the guy to do all that stuff, kind of forces into somebody one who speaks English fluently with Alex, right? Because he's from Canada, who has done this for a very large company that we felt comfortable with doing, and so um, you know, it worked out really really well, and so but then kind of like I said, going out to the Dominican, kind of rekindling this kind of this excitement with Skip, kind of working on Quinquagenario, right? Which then also led into
Well
Volstead,
said. That's where I was going to
right?
go. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And then, because had we had not worked on that and then kind of understanding how to do, and kind of process Sumatra, then Volstead would not have been a thing, right? And
Mhm.
so it just it you know it we a lot of luck, a lot of hard work, a lot of blind faith, a lot of other things kind of led into this other pathway that has really kind of set us up to continue to grow, even more so, right? And so um and then but then everything throws a curveball, and then all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, well, there's no more broadleaf, right? So
Mhm.
now, so then you're like, okay, well, you got to make these hard decisions. We absolutely could have just slapped on, a Pennsylvania broadleaf on the original Cro-Magnon blend and just shipped it out and said, hey, we got Cro-Magnon. And I've had people say, why didn't you just do that? And my answer will always be the same, is that a lot of consumers may not know, but I would know,
Yeah.
like,
Of
and
course.
so, and there would be a large percentage of the people that would go, this isn't quite the same.
Yeah.
This
Thousand
isn't
percent.
what, and so, you kind of think about that, this isn't the first time that if something we didn't have or didn't meet our, there's broadleaf that's out there. It's going to be a lot lighter. It's going to be a lot thinner. It's not going to have the same kind of flavor. It's not going to have the same kind of taste. And so if we can't get the thicker, heavier, darker, richer things that we, kind of put on the original Cro-Magnon, we've said it before, Neanderthal, we've said it before. If I can't get it, we just won't make it. We'll put in production. I'd rather lose the money, but then know that if I put it back out into the marketplace, it's going to be as good, if not better, than what it was originally. And
That's a
that's
good.
on us. That's on me. I put like I would, and that's because at the end of the day, I'm a consumer just like you are. You know,
Right. No, and I mean you guys have been pretty consistent with that. Now I want to put a pin in this part, Mike, because I think I want to talk about Volstead. I want to talk about the Pennsylvania Cro-Magnon here in just a bit. So we'll pause with this fun segment because it'll be a nice transition point to back into this. And this segment, of course, is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atape, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. So, this is taken from a little bit of your history and our history here, Mike. So we know that the role of Alexander Hamilton and George Washington played in the Whiskey Rebellion, which is told through the Intemperance Whiskey Rebellion line that you guys created. And it was under Washington's presidency. The Whiskey Rebellion happened during Washington's presidency. But their partnership goes back a lot further than that. So this is the multiple choice question for you, Mike.
but we're still talking about Hamilton and Washington.
Hamilton and Washington. So back in
Okay.
during the Revolutionary War, what was Alexander Hamilton's first job under George Washington during the Revolutionary War? Was it his A, was he the aide de camp? B, the captain of his artillery? C, his personal war correspondent? Or D, his lead scout?
I'm going to go with his aide de camp.
Yeah, this was a tough one, man. I threw a curveball at you on this one. So that's
because
actually the
because
second.
because he.
It was the second
Okay, go
job.
ahead.
That was the second job. That was the
That's the
second
second
job.
job. Okay.
Yeah, that was the second
What
job.
was
So
what was one?
captain of his artillery, believe it or not,
Captain
which
of his artillery.
which I
Okay.
imagine he probably sucked at, but he was really great at he was really great as I mean, Alexander Hamilton's one of the great thinkers from early American history.
Sure.
So it's easy to see why he got promoted to aide de camp, probably like Dude, you're not good at this artillery thing, man. Why don't you just come into the tent and tell me what I'm doing wrong, and we'll figure this whole British thing out.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, I knew he worked as that was kind of the whole thing was is like he's kind of his right hand man for a lot of
yeah,
things, right? Before he
yeah,
got to go on to out onto his own. So,
yeah.
um,
Well, he was the
that's
right hand man during the whole whiskey rebellion, the whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
the whole history of it. So, what was it about? Okay, so we talked
By the
about this.
way, Jefferson is my favorite size in that blend. By
Yeah,
the way, the robusto.
the
So
Hamilton's mine. The Hamilton's mine,
okay,
and that was the one that won that I gave you guys number two cigar of the year in 2019 for. That I finally got to give you guys at the trade show this year. I felt so terrible about that. Just with COVID and then I foolishly forgot the award last year when you guys returned to PCA and last year, and then so this year you guys were there, and I brought it along thankfully, and was able to finally give it to Skip, and that was long overdue, but now my award can be in its rightful place next to the file cabinet, next to the Cigar Aficionado award that you guys had years ago. So,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
It,
but yeah,
listen, I mean, one, I'm grateful if you're ever on the list and someone recognizes you. I am grateful, but so I do appreciate it. I don't want everyone to think like, oh, they just kind of poop on those things. It's not that. It's just it's like I said, it's nice to be recognized, but it's not the end all be all of what we do. So
you guys you've been consistent on that, Mike. So, but go back to Hamilton and Washington and this during the. I wanted to go back to what you kind of touched on at the very top of the show when we were talking about brand delineation and stuff. And you guys are great at storytelling. At least from my perspective, and I love a good story. Everybody knows that. So the Intemperance line obviously has this background, and you have the Whiskey Rebellion. We'll get into Volstead, of course, here in just a moment. But
sure, more of a prohibition kind of
yeah,
piece.
prohibition theme. What 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 was the impetus of that? What was the genesis of that? Like why intemperance? Why prohibition? What was the what was like you
Look,
and Skipper kicking around just like it'd be really cool to do this.
no, I'm sure we were sitting around watching Boardwalk Empire and was like, dude, this is a great storyline. No, I mean realistically, I think have you seen Boardwalk Empire?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say so I mean it's like Boardwalk Empire, The Wire, uh uh what's the gangster one on HBO?
Sopranos.
The Sopranos, like those are like they're must watch. It's much watch TV, right? Those are great series. But realistically, I think what it was about um when we were kind of sitting down and kind of talking about creating a business, um one of the things that I think that you have to be able to do and do well is mitigate your risk, right? And so when you kind of start thinking about if you're going to start to invest money in something, because at the end of the day, I think what Skip and we just happen to be really good businessmen that are passionate about the cigar industry. So what are things that were going to be difficult, right? We knew government was going to be critical in that conversation. We knew that taxes were going to be something that was going to come up and would always be something difficult. We knew that because like I said, the whole S chip thing kind of threw a wrench into what I was doing with the cigar rollers here in the States, right? Um, so we'd already kind of had a little some foresight in what was going on with that. Um, so anyway, so it was like, okay, well, there's like this running theme. What is the theme? It's fucking government, right? It's like government, and their ability to kind of, tell you, I mean, it's, what's ironic about the whole thing is that tobacco, is like the backbone of this country, right? And they love the money. It's the money that's generated. If there's 450 million cigars, and there's the user fees and the S chip, and each state has its own independent kind of tax that's kind of generated on it, right? So they love the money, but
Love the money.
but it's so it's easy to kind of finger point. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Americans as a whole, like we're not the healthiest people. Um, so if you're gonna overeat and overdrink and have diabetes and have whatever else, it's easy to say, okay, well, smoke at some point is the root cause of all your problems, right? So it's because I can't make you uh eat less than 2,000 calories or drink less than certain, you know what I mean? You just can't, right? So, but you knew that this overall theme of, we had been through this prohibition before with alcohol, and here, we were going to go through it at some point in time, and we didn't know that FDA was going to be what FDA became.
Right.
Like, but yet there was this conversation is like, what if that could happen? And so the intemperance brand was really about trying to get people, to kind of educate them as it's twofold. One, we wanted to have a cigar price, a excellent cigar value cigar that was kind of in this five at the time, 750. Now it's a sub $10 cigar, right? And so you wanted to have something that was going to always be available, something that we could always make, something that would always be, a good value proposition for someone to say, you know, because the intrigue, for example, when we first started, I think was 550, right? So the Hamilton size, for
Yeah.
BA was like 550, right? So, if somebody wanted to try a cigar, like, you thought, as a lost leader, it's like, I try a cigar for $5 and kind of, let you know, like, well, hopefully this is a good entry point in and kind of work your way into the other stuff that we made. And so, um, I think that was a lot of the conversation piece was like, okay, how do we get this in the hands of people that could understand and appreciate. um, what I didn't expect is someone to go, well, how good is it, if it's under $10, how good of a cigar could it be for under $10 cigar, right? Like, which is wild to me that you would hear stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm gonna light up my number two cigar. So I saw you smoke the Anthropology, so I'm gonna go with a little SGP, a little
sounds good.
Neanderthal action. We'll close it out tonight. So,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
um,
Yeah, that craft
but
was amazing, man. I loved it. I loved it.
good, good. So if you're like me and you're kind of wondering, I wonder what that would taste like with broadleaf. Put that out
Be
there.
down, be down, down for
Yeah,
some of that for sure.
yeah.
But
The so sorry to interrupt. So the intemperance, uh, so the artwork that came from the intemperance brand was the tree of temperance, right? So you're either intemperate or temperate, you either abstained or you didn't. And so you had this kind of before and after. So you had the 18th Amendment, which started prohibition. You had the 21st Amendment, which was kind of the end. And kind of, so the names in the tree, charity, virtue, industry, right, were on the EC side, right? So if your seeds were good and you were holy, or not holy, but holistic, then your fruit would be good, right? But if you weren't and you drank or whatever, then your seeds would be bad, So the ambition, envy, right, and you had kind of the tree and this and the snake in the tree, a
right,
temptation. And so we took that
the
and
logo
made
on
the
my hat. Here we
logo
here we go.
on
Yeah.
your hat.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so um then that was um kind of the genesis of the intemperance brand. And so the so you had the Brazilian Maduro, the BA, and then you have the EC, which was Ecuador, Connecticut. And then soon afterwards, in 2018, 2019, we did the Dojo release and kind of launched the Whiskey Rebellion, which was uh, the Habano, uh, which was kind of an earlier piece, but it was the first kind of movement of, kind of the first time that a basically a U.S. president had ever rolled up on, his own people for a tax purpose in Pennsylvania. And so the Whiskey Rebellion was kind of like the first intemperance kind of statement piece.
Hmm.
Um, and then recently we decided to launch the Volstead, which was the Volstead Act. And again, at the trade show, basically a $7.50 to $10 cigar, Sumatra cigar, which is a heater of a cigar. It's a banger. I mean, it tastes expensive. It tastes decadent. It's got all the right notes for a price point that is just, um, it's done amazing. And so now when you look at the intemperance portfolio, hopefully we get the BA back into production, but you'll have kind of these four variations in this kind of the sub $10 kind of price point cigar. So you have the Brazilian Maduro, the Connecticut, the Habano, and now Sumatra.
Yeah. So the exploration of Sumatra, it's easy to connect the dots, Mike. But if it's not true, I kind of want to make clear the air here. I mean, was the Sumatra genesis, the working with Ernesto on the quinquagenaria
Yeah.
process? Okay.
So I think during that um so one, I think they're really good at working it. And so
Hmm.
whenever, he gets an opportunity to kind of peel back, these are the things that you kind of look for when you buy it. These are the kind of things that you got to look for when you're processing it. These are the things that you got to look for kind of throughout the stages. Definitely were implemented in early, kind of in the note taking of that opportunity, right? And
Hmm.
so um and what's funny is that, um I want to say the original Oliva V is Sumatra. There's a cigar that Oliva makes. I'm like, dude, it's a great cigar. And so people, it's like Cameroon. People will tell you they love Cameroon all day long, but then, it's like, okay, well, name three cigars that come off of Cameroon, right? Like people have a hard time kind of naming, you know,
Hmm.
unless it's like, so and so's Cameroon cigar. You know what I mean? Like that's about the extent of what they could really kind of give to you as far as descriptors of brands. But um, so anyway, so it was never something that was really kind of high on Skip's radar, and I think that kind of getting a chance to kind of see it done and done well, kind of changed his opinion of that. And so,
Yeah.
luckily for us, I mean, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, um, when you're kind of like us and you have the ability to be kind of a scratch kitchen, and you go to the market and you say, okay, today, instead of red ripe tomatoes, you got green tomatoes. You figure out how to you just basically are using what Mother Nature's given you, right? And you got
Hmm.
to create a whole new menu off of what's available, and so um you know and I think that we've done a really good job on that. I think and a couple of other things kind of happened too, right? I think as like if you thought back of the cigars that you smoked in 2012, 2010 to 2012, 2013, and then the evolution of what you were smoking in 14 through 2017, and then kind of where you're at 2018 to 2020, right? And then where you are now, I'm sure you would say like there's definitely a discernible variation of like where you're at in each one of
Oh,
those, kind of
thousand
like it.
percent, 1,000%. Well, the
Okay.
intemperance line follows that. I think it was if it wasn't the if it wasn't the beginning of it or the catalyst to it, it was certainly a part of that movement. Because if you remember when we started smoking in the early 2000s, Mike, it was there were two when a cigar company came out with the brands, they came out with two cigars. They came out with a Maduro and a natural. And the Maduro could be San Andre, it could be broadleaf, it could be, Ecuadorian Maduro. It didn't matter. It could be Maduro, and then it could be natural. Natural could be Sumatran, it could be Connecticut, Ecuadorian Connecticut shade, it could be Connecticut shade, it could be whatever. But it was like
Mm,
very, very general. And then all of a sudden there was this flip. And like I said, if you guys weren't the catalyst, you guys were certainly a part of it. But I remember very early on that to me, you guys were at least, with the exception of Ecuadorian Connecticut, which is kind of like a staple. You guys were the first people to actually do, or among the first to actually do something different, or at least to the different to the extent of explaining it, which was we have a Maduro and a natural. This is EC, and then this is BA, Brazilian Aparaca, for people who don't know. Um, if you all have been living under a rock. But then I love the fact that you guys introduced now this third line, or technically fourth line, excuse me, now, right? And you have these two variations that kind of exist somewhere in the middle, but are very different.
right.
Um, and I really like the progression, one, of the story, just because again I like stories, but two, of just the tale of tobacco. You have very, I mean, it's a very precise order in a stepping stool of, okay, how do we get to BA? Okay, it's like EC, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think, I think the way that I smoke it, if we're going up the ladder, so to speak, it would be EC, Volstead, Whiskey Rebellion, and then BA in terms of like strength, body,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
kind of.
I would probably invert. Yeah, BA or whiskey, you could kind of interchangeably put them probably depending on which size variation you're going to go into, right? Like I think I mean, the intrigue definitely got it's got a zing to it, right? Like so,
Mhm.
I think kind of depends on which variation you're smoking, but there's a uh but yeah, that's absolutely, EC Volstead, and then you kind of would flip either, Whiskey Rebellion or BA. But I think that, again, um I think as you get a little bit older, so go back to the origin, right? Cro-Magnon. So if I went and visited your shop and I went over to go see Elite and I went to go see Brandon and I went down and saw the shop over by Love, Jay, and then I went to, or whatever, and I smoked 5 Cro-Magnons back to back, right? Like, it's like, but people do it, right? And so, but that's, so then, it's like, okay, we need something a little different, right? So Octane kind of came out. Then you wanted something a little different with, EC and BA. And so basically, at that time, you just kind of had these four that were kind of these like staples.
Mm-hmm.
And, you kind of throw in, Neanderthal came after,
Neanderthal.
and then Whiskey Rebellion, and so then it's like, okay, well, the spectrum from EC to Neanderthal it's got everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Very much so.
I
Yeah,
mean,
across the brands. Yeah.
across the brand, right? But then you kind of throw in, Volstead, which again it has this decadent flavor profile. Like, it's rich, but it's not strong. It goes all the way up to like this medium full, but doesn't really kind of go over the cliff, right? Where, you know, there's some spiciness in Aquitaine. There's some spiciness in the Whiskey Rebellion. There's some depth and some flavor, bombs in the BA, right? Um, and again, like, you're still talking in between like the $7 to $12 kind of price point, right? Which is just, you know, um, and the things that we do. So if I say, hey, these are going to be our price points, then we've got to fit our business structure on the back end to make sure, because we don't have the margins. Like, we don't have the margins built in, um, and into the cigars to do, buy this and get a backpack and get a lighter cutter, ashtray, whatever. Like, you don't have it in there, right? So you say, okay, hey, I'm putting out a really good cigar at a fair price, which is a win to the consumer. It's a win to the retailer, and it's a win for us because we can produce it. And if everything kind of flows through, I don't have to make gazillions and billions of dollars, but I can do enough to kind of feed, and take care of the people that work for us and do all these other things. And so that's kind of and we only have to sell 1 million cigars to do it. So we're still the same size that we've been, I think since 2016. So I mean, I think that's when we finally got over 1 million cigars imported, 2015, 2016, over 1 million cigars, and kind of stayed at that size. And so so kind of, you know, um, I think that everything that we make, there's something for somebody in
Sure.
in the in the so someone's not looking for something as full and as rich and as strong as Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, then Volstead kind of fits into that. Or if they want something a little even stronger or spicier than that, you got Whiskey Rebellion, you have Aquitaine that kind of checks that box, right? And if you want somebody who wants to kind of tone it down, I mean, you guys look at the amount of EC you guys sell out of Michael's. It's stupid. Like, it's just stupid. The amount of
Yeah.
brotherly kindness and faith that they sell out of that shop is just, you know, um,
Well,
I
it's a
mean, it's a weekly
huge
order
screen.
from,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a huge screen
So
for us. Yeah. I mean, still is, from my understanding
still
of it. It's
is,
crazy.
yeah.
And then Baca fits somewhere into, and Wonderlust for that matter, they fit somewhere kind of in the in between too. I call those, like, again, we keep using the metaphor of curveball, but they're kind of the curveball. I feel like the curveball statements within the whole story. Um,
Well, so the Wonderlust is obviously a European thing that we send over to Germany.
mhm.
Um, and it's, you know, it has its own little section. Um, and but essentially, when the Schuster said they wanted to kind of start selling our cigars in Europe, again, your kind of thought process is, I thought they like smaller cigars, and I thought they like mild cigars because they smoke a lot of Cubans, right? Compared to our portfolio. Um, so the Schusters at one point in time had distributed Drew Estate and distributed La Flor Dominicana. Obviously, when Drew Estate had sold to Swisher. They that kind of took that off the board. And then La Flor Dominicana, either went independent or just kind of throttled back their availability, and I don't know what they really did. And so they were trying to find a kind of a foothold for something Nicaraguan. And so Anne Marie had came over and said that she wanted to kind of do something. And so we went over to Germany, started working with the Schusters, and basically remade one of the cigars that they made for their market, because they make cigars. They're one of the oldest, late 1800s. They've been making cigars in Germany, and so we basically made one of their cigars, put our spin on it, and that became Wonderlust.
Right.
And then but again, the availability of tobacco, just I would love to sell it in the United States. We just not enough of the basically the ingredients that you would need to be able to support the brand here doesn't make sense. And we also had done it prior to FDA, and so it wasn't something that we had registered here because we weren't really sure what was going to happen with FDA. So that was kind of a big proponent of why we didn't do it. And then Baca came along. And Baca, unfortunately, I think um, you know, it's a fantastic cigar. I mean, it's basically, I tell people it's like the U.S. version of what Wonderlust would be, right? Except for it's got African Cameroon instead of the Brazil Matafina, as far as the wrapper is concerned. And different blends, but as far as like profile wise and strength and body,
Yeah.
um, but it's very traditional. What a traditional African Cameroon cigar would taste like, right? And I think I guess the best way to kind of explain it is as a you know you you could in theory just kind of keep making the same style of cigars, but I think after a while it would become derivative of the same kind of cigar that
Yeah.
you're making. Is just
Cannibalize
you know
yourself. Yeah, for sure.
you can't yeah. So you want to again, so you don't necessarily sit around and think about oh, there's this the segment of the market that we're not targeting, because if that was the case, I'd go into flavored cigars, right? Because I mean that's a
Right.
huge but you do look at it and go, okay, what are you missing in your portfolio that would make sense, that would fit in this kind of this story that you're trying to tell, right? From an artistic uh, kind of sense, as you know, um, someone comes up and say, I don't like spicy and I don't like full bodied and I don't like, it's like, okay, well, where do I put them into what I have? And then you go, you know what? I'm kind of missing this one little section.
Right.
Um, as well as you kind of look at it and go, that's a wrapper leaf that's out there. It's available. I would like to play with that. I would like to work with that. I would like to try to see what you can come up with that would make sense, right? And I think that
Right.
that's where um, the conversation at least starts at, right? Because there's only so many. I mean, now that there's a lot more hybrids, right? But there's 7 years ago, 8 years ago, there weren't nearly as many hybrids that are out there as there are now.
Yeah.
And
There's
more are coming. But
Ecuadorian, Honduran, yeah, of Cameroon. Yeah.
right.
It's a lot of
So
difference.
so then really what you have is like, okay, well, there's San Andres, but then there's the dark, and you got the claro, and you got, what I mean, like you got the color shades and thickness and thinness. Same with broadleaf, and now obviously now that we're going to be working with Pennsylvania, um, but realistically, you can kind of go through and go, okay, what's out there that you haven't got to play with and work with, um, and does it make sense within your portfolio? So
Gotcha.
but Baca is scheduled to come out and produce, assuming we can get um, the the components to make it. Um, hopefully we can. It's like that's the reason why BA has kind of been off there's just like the Pennsylvania, or I'm sorry, just like the U.S. Connecticut broadleaf. There's broadleaf that's out there, but it just doesn't meet the requirements for what we need. So you don't buy it. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. Uh, there's Arapiraca that's kind of out there, but most of it's already kind of it's cooked, right? And we use a natural process, and so it doesn't make sense. You don't buy it, you don't bring it in, you don't use it, right? So you have to, okay, well, what else is out there? And you kind of start looking at it and go, okay, I can either make more of what I already have. Can I sell more if I make more of those? Can I expand on the brand? or do I try to fit in something? Can I get the components to make these other things that so I would absolutely love to expand on Baca. We haven't, the only two intervals that we've done it and released it, I would say it's less than 300 or 400 boxes per each individual size. So it hasn't been like this massive amount of Baca out in existence, right? So it could grow.
Well, if you want to bring back Oda Benga, that'd be fantastic because I love that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big gauge guy, and I fucking love the Baca blend and that gauge. That's fantastic stuff. That you bring about a good point, Mike. Before we kind of go into our last few questions of the night, which are what I call our fun segments and stuff. But I did want to touch on this because I think it's important. Again, we talked about the quality of the leaf and why it's so important to you guys. And you guys have long stand behind that kind of the mantra and why sometimes you can get Cro-Magnon, why sometimes you can get Aquitaine, and sometimes you can't. Um, but you and kudos to you guys because again, you mentioned it earlier. There are companies out there that have done that. They've swapped out Pennsylvania for U.S. Connecticut or some variation of that kind of change broadleaf to San Andreas or whatever, and not tell the customer, the retailer, the customer, etc., and just kind of like smiled all the way to the bank, so to speak. Not trying to put too much of a um conniving tone to it, but I mean it's you know there's a lot of I give a lot of credit to you guys because you guys were really have always been upfront about it. It's been a problem for a while, and here we are at the unfortunate not end necessarily, but a statement point for you guys that you had to make a switch, but you guys are being transparent. Here's my question. This is something you can really help me on because you guys have been a master of I feel like a master of marketing and branding because we talked a lot about the stories tonight. Why why call it Cro-Magnon if it's going to be a different wrapper? Why not call it Cro-Magnon Pennsylvania or Intemperance Whiskey, like similar to like Intemperance Whiskey Rebellion or
Sure.
Intemperance Volstead? Why not call it
Well,
Cro-Magnon Pennsylvania?
we actually were going to rename it to something completely uh
Like
with a
different,
whole new origin kind of story.
like Neanderthal, but something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
and
Cool.
and I think it's just going to be called Cro-Magnon, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I don't. We haven't finalized on it. I mean, that was actually one of the things that we really kind of wanted to get nailed down while I was in Nicaragua. Kind of ran out of time, and everything was people were just so busy entertaining, because after the initial wave of consumers come through that do the tour, then you have all the European distributors come over and they're doing their business for what they have to do. So it's almost like this, 2.5 week stretch of on top of what's going on at TPE and all this other stuff, right? So anyway, so unfortunately, I think that's kind of the game plan for now is it will be Cro-Magnon, Pennsylvania, and it'll be
Okay.
different color, different packaging. I mean, packaging will be the
Oh,
same.
okay.
Same. There's
Okay,
some
great.
different names in the sizes. Like for example, like Black Irish will, this version will be called Clovis. Um,
Oh,
so I
cool.
mean, so there's some variations that we'll be able to tell. So for the consumer side or anybody who still has any kind of inventory left, like it'll definitely be
Different. Oh, okay.
different. So that way it is recognizable,
Okay.
distinguishable as far as a different.
Oh,
Uh,
well, that's wonderful. Yeah, that was the part that confused me. And I'm glad I asked the question, Mike. And I'm glad you guys because it was probably just a simply misunderstanding from some of y'all's communication. I mean, obviously it was a misunderstanding. I had understood it to be like you guys were going to continue to call it Cro-Magnon, but being transparent about the fact that there's been this change, which again I gave you guys credit for. So it's going to be completely different. Oh, that's great. That's great. I think that's awesome because I think
well,
that'll
so
be
so so
perfect.
the brand. I mean, here's the reality of it is. I mean, Cro-Magnon is what is like the backbone of what our company is kind of known for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
No,
like like
absolutely.
that's your initial baby. That's what put you out there. And I mean,
Yeah.
Adrian's Cro-Magnon or whatever. You know what I mean? Like so that name has a lot of weight within. Um, and I think that kind of like Intemperance Volstead, like you still know that it's within the Intemperance brand. This will be Cro-Magnon, but it's it'll have so it's still within that. Like even
Cro-Magnon
Aquitaine to
X
us,
or. Yeah.
yeah, Aquitaine is still Cro-Magnon Aquitaine. So it's
Mhm.
still Cro-Magnon, but it's the Aquitaine variant, or because it's the same blend, different wrapper, right? Like,
Mhm.
where this will be different wrapper and modified blend. So it'll be unique in its own way.
Definitely.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm stoked about. I like Pennsylvania. I don't like it when people try to tell me that it's the same as Broadleaf because it's not. Um, but I do like it. I do like it, and when it's blended, I think it can be blended really uniquely. I've seen it used in both filler, binder, and wrapper, and I love what it adds to a blend typically in a lot of ways. So I'm
well,
excited to
here's
see what you and Scoop
I'll
come
ask.
up with.
Well, thank you. Let me ask you this question, right? Because I think you see this come up in wine a lot. So what happens whenever someone comes out with a quote unquote broadleaf cigar, but it's a hybrid. So it's a
Hmm.
Nicaraguan hybrid or a Dominican hybrid or it's a whatever. So it's broadleaf seed grown in another region, but they still tell you that it's U.S. broadleaf because it's U.S. broadleaf seed, but grown in a different region. Should they disclose that? Shouldn't they disclose that?
Absolutely no, I think they absolutely should.
Right. So where that comes into question is, so let's say, for example, you're in Paso Robles out in California. Now, I'm not a heavy wine drinker, but I know I've done enough wine cigar events out there in my past that they kind of complain about it. So people out of Napa and Sonoma will come down and they'll buy a boatload of grapes from Paso Robles, take it back, and then so whatever the legal limit is, let's call it 49%. 49% of that grape for that wine will be from Paso Robles, but then it's kind of finished off either in Sonoma or in Napa, and they'll call it a Napa wine,
Yeah.
right? So in the cigar world, you know, I I think there are, you know, that it should be disclosed,
Yeah.
right? Like if it's U.S. Connecticut out of Connecticut River Valley, then you get to say it's Connecticut River Valley stuff.
Yeah.
If it's but if it's a variant grown in some other country, then that hybrid is a hybrid. It's not the same. So
Mhm.
and the reason why I bring that up is because we went and looked at stuff and they swore up and down, but then when you do the burn, smell, stretch, elasticity kind of test on it, you're like, it's got this characteristic, but it didn't have that characteristic, or it's got these two, it doesn't have this one, or there's something missing. And they go, oh, that's a hybrid. Say, okay, why don't you just tell them it was a hybrid? Like, why don't we start there in the conversation? And so people are selling it off as something that it's clearly not, that it's not. And so again, I go back to the Apple thing. It's like, you know but in our industry, for some reason, it's like this buyer beware. You got to really know your shit to make sure that you don't, and work with people that you trust, right? So um but anyway, so that's something to see how that unfolds in the future, because I think more and more hybrids are coming out, and but I don't think people are really disclosing that they're using these hybrids. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, and even like so the Sumatra is an Ecuadorian Sumatra. Like, so I mean, in the technical term or language that you buy it at, it says that it's a hybrid, right? Because it's not, if it's an African seed but it's grown in Ecuador, then it technically is Sumatra. It's um so I mean, even for us, like, I'm like, hey, that's a hybrid wrapper, right? So it's not. Um, Anyways, it's just, so it's one of those things that I wonder, like, how the industry as a whole will start to kind of regulate itself in that situation.
Yeah. I
Anyways, you had
I
another question.
No, no, that was you kind of answered it. And I think that I'm excited, Mike. Because that was again just my misunderstanding of the communication been put out there, and that's on me. So, but no, I'm excited because I think that'll be a great build onto the brand, and that allows you guys in a lot of ways um to stay true to your roots, but also give your fans and what they've what which is we still live in the what's new kind of thing, and you guys are able to do that, but still not stray too far from this visionary path that you guys do. So is Chrome? I did actually have another question. So is Cro-Magnon the original, the U.S. broadleaf I know is it officially on hiatus? Like it will come back if as long as you guys can find the tobacco, or is it indefinitely suspended? Like what's the I guess the status of it
Yeah,
since
yeah. I think I so um yes, I think it would come back. I think if the availability for all the materials are the same and we can get it, and I do think that we're on a pathway for that to actually happen, and I'll explain that in a second. But I think that um you know, yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, it's such
it's the
it's a
baby,
great cigar.
like
Yeah,
you said, yeah.
and it's not like there's not a demand for that cigar. Now, if people come out and they said, I absolutely like this blend better than that blend, and there was a clear, and I doubt that would happen. But I do think that this blend is good enough to people go, this equally checks off all the boxes as far as a great cigar, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like if yeah, why not? You know what I mean? Like that's like, yes, I would want to. I think it would
Nice.
be silly of us not to. Now the pricing structure on something like that definitely pushes the limits and boundaries of what again. Um, if you say, hey, this is the price that I really want to stay at my price point at, even though the market bears, because I go to some states where they have higher taxes that they're selling that cigar much more expensive than what MSRP is because of the state taxes, and they're getting it. So from that perspective, you're like, meaning, if you're paying $34, $36 a pound and they come out and they say, this wrapper is available, but it's $50 a pound, but it's exactly what you're looking for, but I had to modify the prices on the US side to absorb that cost and people will still buy it. Yeah, I think why not? You know,
So it's not
I
just
think
even
that
the tobacco, it's the economics behind it too. I didn't even think about
sure.
that, Mike. That's a fair point. Yeah. Yeah, because yeah, you might be able to find the exact broadleaf that you need, but if it costs triple or quadruple what you guys want it to cost in order to keep the price consistent, because you can't have, for all intents for brand I guess congruency and consistency, you can't have Cro-Magnon cranium at I'm just shooting a number out there for $20 and the Aquitaine cranium at 12. That
Right.
probably doesn't make sense. Yeah, no, I get that. That I didn't even think about that. That's a good interesting point too. Well, cool. Well, Mike, I really do appreciate tonight's conversation. We have a few more questions to conclude our interview here. These are all the fun segments though, but I'm excited about the future of Volstead, excited about the future of this new Cro-Magnon Pennsylvania, whatever it'll be and what you guys come up with. I'm really excited to smoke that. And then really stoked for the return of Baca because I'm a huge fan of that blend too. So, but that'll be great stuff. Um, so this will kind of lead.
If I know a store that has some on hand, would that help? You want me to text it to you? You want me to call them out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I was actually, so I think there's two. I think Fine Ash in Arizona has quite a bit of Baca, and so does Al Ear in Arizona. So Sam and Rosie at Fine Ash and Lenny over at Al Ear have
Oh, beautiful. Our
I
friends
want to
in Arizona.
say, yeah. So I was just kind of going through kind of their inventories the other day, and so that's anyways. So
That's cool.
hopefully
Well,
everyone calls them and buys it all up. So
yep, exactly. So now I'm going to be late to the party because I'll have to produce the show first and then give them a call tomorrow. But our friends in Arizona have some Baca for all of our Baca fans out there. So don't buy it all. Leave me a box, guys. Seriously. All right. But that'll lead us into our final questions for tonight, Mike. And of course, this next one are brought to you by friends of yours, good friends of yours. Everybody Eats, sponsored by Pastania Cigars. If you always make sure that your serving style is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. So there's three questions in this category, Mike, but I always change it up each week and I give a question to my guests. So here we're gonna go with this one. Um, so what is the best experience? Because I know you've traveled the world And I know you and Skip have amazing, exquisite taste when it comes to a lot of different things. We talked about your bourbon collection and so on and so forth. But what is your best experience of eating with other people? Where was it? What did you have? Any kind of details on that meal?
Um, I've had a lot. So, um, one of the things that the sorry, Skip sent me a text message. The so we were in Amsterdam at I want to say the W Hotel. Um, and so well, not scratch that. Um, so Bizarre Meats in Vegas in 2018 and 2019 was a really cool experience because you kind of walk in, same kind of style. So you walk in, they have all these kind of different kind of cuts of meat and whatever. Um, and so I want to say the Postania guys were there, Fable guys were there, some Matul, Postania, Jeff at Riverside. I mean, pretty much every one of our close friends were there. And so, I don't know, $80 an ounce Wagyu cooked on hot stones, cotton candy, fancy drinks, whatever. Like that was a pretty cool meal. Kind of with everyone that you're kind of close to. But probably the best experience food wise was this hotel in Amsterdam that we got to sit kind of in the kitchen while they prepared our food in one of the,
I
I
love
mean,
places
just
like that.
super, super, um, yeah. And I wish I could remember the name of the place. It'll come to me after the show, but um, really cool experience. And then realistically, when I traveled when I was in Costa Rica, and this is kind of from my earlier kind of life. Um, so I like to try different foods. So it was like, hey, you grab a plate, I'll grab a plate. Everyone will cut up, and then you kind of dissect whatever.
Hmm.
Because whenever you're not really familiar with the food or the culture or cuisine or whatever, um, you're ordering off shit you don't even know. Like you don't know. It's like I think I know what it is, but that looks pretty good. I'll try it, and then, but then if your food looks better than my food, but I want a bite of it, like, so in Costa Rica, when I traveled around a lot, especially, um, going down into Panama, whatever, I always kind of traveled with a group of four. Um, and so we always would basically kind of share food, eat family style, you know what I
Nice.
mean?
I love
So
it. I love it.
um, yeah.
I love it. That's
But
awesome.
Bizarre Meats, if you ever get a chance to eat a Bizarre Meats, it's pretty good.
It's on my list to try, man. I'm hoping to get out there at some point over the next couple of years while the
It's
show
in
is
the
still in
S. It's in
Vegas.
the S. Yeah, it's in the SLS. So it's actually so right across the street from where Las Vegas Convention's at. You cross over, um, and they do a fantastic job.
That's awesome. Yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to going to Vegas when it's not like sweltering hot too. I'm gonna enjoy that experience. Like the high, I was looking at, I keep track of the weather and stuff. I think the high tonight is like 49 or something in Vegas. Shit, that's colder
Yeah,
than it is here in Texas.
it'll definitely be jacket weather in the afternoon, even in March. So
It's crazy. All right. Well, that was our Everybody Eats segment sponsored by Pastania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. Uh, Now, these are some of your old standby segments here to conclude our night, Mike, but they're actually new to you since the last time you've been on. So this is our next segment is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So, Mike, this segment is about, and I'm sure you've had dozens of these experiences over the years smoking cigars and everything. But we live in a very community based, industry. You're always smoking cigars around people, whether it's in the factory testing out blends or on a podcast interview with yours truly. You're sharing a cigar with somebody. You're always around somebody smoking a cigar and everything. But every once in a while, you have the opportunity to smoke a cigar alone. And sometimes that could be a private moment of celebration. Sometimes it could be just a moment of reflection or something like that. Maybe some music in the background, maybe reading a book, watching a movie, something like that. Like I said, you've probably had a dozen of these or so in your lifetime. But what's one that comes to mind? Doesn't have to be your necessarily favorite, but what's a moment like this that comes to mind where nobody was around? It was just you and a cigar. What was the cigar you were smoking, and what was that moment about, if you can remember?
Recently, or because I
Anytime. Yeah, yeah. Open-ended
um
question.
okay. Um well, it's difficult because pretty much like once I get out of the gym and I eat breakfast, I mean, I kind of light up a cigar and I kind of really transition from cigar to cigar until I go to bed. So, um, but one that stands out, um, oh, I just had one actually. So it's funny. There's a hotel called Los Arcos in Esteli, and it's an older hotel. It's probably one of the oldest in Esteli, but it's almost like this rite of passage that if someone comes into Esteli and they're going to stay there, that they go up to the rooftop and you have a cigar up on the rooftop. And so um, I think that early in the morning after, so typically I get up, go for a walk, and whatever, and then eat some breakfast. I go up there and basically kind of listen to Esteli kind of wake up and kind of get going. And the cigar that I was smoking was an intemperance virtue. Um, but it's so one, the city again, it's grown so much. And what I mean by that is the amount of people that are um the city itself from a population has probably shrunk over the last couple of years because of the people kind of a lot of change in migration patterns and other things, but there are more people driving, and so listening to all the cars and the buses and kind of just like the town starting to kind of wake up or whatever, early morning, and just kind of listening to kind of the rumblings while you're kind of up on this patio and you kind of get to see traffic and people kind of coming and going is always fun. And listening to the church bells kind of go off into the distance was it's just one of those moments where the reflection point is one of just gratitude, being present in the moment, being present in kind of all the things that are going on, right? Like, and it's really kind of when we started this conversation, right? There's a lot of reflection, as where you started, where you are at, where you want to go, right? And sometimes it's like my 17-year-old son that wants to, it's like I'm like slow down, like don't be in a rush, like let things come to you. And I think that that's just kind of what happens as you kind of get older, right? So just be present in the moment, um, and and there is this gratitude. I'm grateful that you know I've got a partner like Skip that is um, just incredible, person. And, people say, oh, the attitude on Facebook, whatever. It's like completely different than the person who he actually is. And I think if you met Skip and Skip, you know, you would think completely different, right? Um, but as far as like the way he takes care of the people at the factory and the way he takes care of the people that we work with and the vision, my family, right? And being away from my family while you have to travel or whatever, and being grateful that you have the support system and structure to be able to do the things that we have to do. And so I'm on the road a lot, right? And so the reflection part is really just kind of being, having friends like Mike and Step on Cabbage, and people, just being around people that want and that are rooting for you. I think that that's important, right? That want to see you be successful. They want to see you do good things. They want to see, and you want to bring them along with you, right? Like you want everyone to do well, and so that's I mean, this is a really hard business. Like it's hard, it's easy to get on someone's shelves, but it's hard to get people to get bought in. It's hard to get people to understand the vision. It's hard to, especially at the size and level that we do it at, right? So, but then they kind of have the staying power that we've had, um, and again, like the we continue to push forward and be creative. But you got guys that weren't in the industry that are now in the industry, like Saka and Nick Melillo and Black Label and HBC and even uh, Postania and Protocol, right? And they're all doing great jobs, right? And so the variety, there aren't really any bad cigars in the marketplace. The tobacco has gotten so much better over the years, right? So, um, but getting people to come back to your product over and over and over again, and being grateful for that, right? Like you walk into a humidor, there's 1,400 other options that you can go with, right? So the fact that people continue to pick up our cigars, so I mean, there's gratitude in that, I mean, there's um, so anyway, so just that kind of reflection, um, is something that I continue to just kind of be present in the moment.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that journey's kind of been like for you, because again, it's not like something that I've experienced firsthand myself. From my perspective, mine's a little different, but similar in the sense that I've been along for the ride. I mentioned earlier, and I've noted this several times, that I was selling your cigar when they didn't have labels, and um and if I could pat myself on the back, I did a damn fine job of it. But it was um it's so great to see, like, where something starts and where something is not ends, because it certainly hasn't, but where it is currently. And you know in terms of grand history, we're a blip. We're both a blip on the screen. But in terms of even in the cigar industry, which spans decades if not centuries, you know, and I mean this respectfully, Mike, Romacraft is a blip on that grand scale
Sure,
too. And
absolutely.
but what you've accomplished in that amount of time, and where it's grown and where it started and where it is now, is insane. Like you said, you started in a back room, opened a factory, now you have a pre-industry building, and you had two very distinct brands, very with very similar but simple approaches. Now we have these variant of stories, the Baca, the Wonderlust, for an entirely different market, the Neanderthal, Volstead, etc. Right? You know, it, um, it's been really cool to watch these stories as they grow, and to paint a picture back to when you were on this rooftop and you're kind of observing and reflecting of this moment and everything. I mean, does it I mean, would you, it's gonna actually, that kind of leads into my last question, so I'm gonna let it hang there for a second. But um, I mean, just how this is such a cliche question to ask, but I mean, how proud does that make you to see where it started and where it is currently? I know that's such a God, man, that's such a cop out question, but I mean, it has to bring about a certain pride in what
Oh,
you've
I
done.
think and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, to be um, to still be recognized in conversation pieces of people tipping their cap to you, that you stay true to what you laid out in the beginning. Like when Skip and I sat down, in 2011, and we talked about, what's the company that you want to be, what's the identity, and still stay true to that, right? To still be part of, the original fabric of, because it would be really easy to say, you know what, this isn't working, you know, uh, retailers just want X, Y, and Z and deals, terms, and whatever, and consumers just want swag and yada yada, to move product, or whatever. um, we got to increase the prices and just be like everybody else, and then change your whole philosophy of what you want to put out there, and at the price point that you want to put out there, and just say cop out. um, but yet just kind of staying true to who you are, right, and understanding what I'm not, right. I don't have the million billions of dollars in pockets to compete with, Scandinavia and Altadis and these other groups to even really be competitive, right? So I couldn't win in that. I couldn't win. And so we've always had this blue ocean strategy kind of mindset of, going into, these other types of waters and being successful in these other types of arenas, and then, and building from within that. And so, and we still, that still holds true to today. Right. And so um, to, to, I can still look back and recognize the Michael Rosales and Skip Martin from 2010, 2011 to today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's not this massive change and overhaul of company and philosophy because this didn't work, so we had to pivot and change. We've had to make changes and go, we gotta double down with what we are and who we are to make sure that we can continue to progress in the way that we want to, and that's what we've done. And so there's a lot of pride in that. There's a lot of, again, gratitude, and it's not easy. You know what I mean? It's not. um life changes and throws things at you, and you've got to be able to have, again, hopefully you're set up in a way to where you can kind of see it coming, and you got to make the changes, right? And so, we're talking about it off air, right? Like 2023 was a really difficult year, right? Into 2022 and 2023 was but you sit back and you look at it and you go, man, I'm glad you kind of went through that, because now I know, like, the changes that I had to do, the self-reflection that we've had to do to make sure that me as a person, you as a person, I've done everything the right way. Not everyone around you may or may not still be there, right? But I know holistically, like, I'm a better person, and I'm going to be okay as long as I can continue to go down the path that I'm on, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so I think that's it's critical, and it's and again, I don't this, whenever it's your own kind of project, I mean, um, again, I've got, so much time and money and away from family invested in this, right? That now, I'm going to continue to work even harder to make sure that it continues to function and work, that I know that it will work at,
Right.
and so yeah, I'm really proud. I'm really grateful, and I'm excited for, the next, 4 or 5 years and what has to come down, and where we'll be at when we're having this conversation, and on the next, evolution of this conversation, right? So
For sure. Absolutely. Me as well, Mike. So that leads us into our last question of the evening. And I'm so grateful for your time, Mike. As you mentioned, you do spend a lot of time traveling, and you've been a lot of time on the road. You'd put the kids to bed and, you know, kiss Jamie goodnight, and came out here and had a conversation with me. So I'm very grateful that you took some time away from your family to spend it with me. And you know, this segment is always brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park. Nine, count them up. Now 9 consecutive years in the consensus top three. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So we talked a lot about how the journey's kind of come along, and how you guys have not sacrificed any of those true principles that you sought out, and that you kind of placed into the very foundation of what you built in 2011, Mike. But here's a question. I'm going to force an answer out of you on this one, because a lot of people like to say, oh, I wouldn't change a thing. But what have you learned, or what would you have done differently if you had to start over today? What would you have done differently if you had to start over today? And I'm not going to accept the answer. I wouldn't change anything. Because yes, it's all been a learning experience, and that's all great, and that's what got you here today. And I always accept that answer as the true answer. But if you could do something differently, what would you do differently?
well, you have to remember, though, so I actually got a chance to get my redo. So when I had Adrian's, I was by myself, and Skip and I kind of laid out the foundation of what you would do differently, knowing what I know now, trying to start out in 2006 with that business, and this business. um I did get the redo, right? And I'll tell you what I told myself and what I told Skip back then is that someone always has to be at the factory at all times, because the reality of it is, no matter, um, let's say I come to you and I say, hey, I need, um, this, 1,000 baseball bats, right? And you say, okay, you make bats, and that's what you do. You're great at it, or gloves, or whatever. And the first, out of the 1,000, the first, 350 come out, right weight, right texture, right whatever. The next batch, is a little off, a little bit heavier, a little thicker, whatever. And then the last whatever is just not quite what you thought it was going to be, right? And there's something off. You can't really kind of put your finger on it, but it's not like what the middle section is not what the number one section. Like there's just some kind of variation in degrees that are always off. And I truly believe that you have to be um, involved at the factory, which is why Skip is there. Um, I think, in hindsight, I don't think Skip ever thought that he would have to spend as much time there, and probably didn't really, um, you know, but I, grateful that he has chosen to be kind of that active and engaged at the factory level. The second thing that I, is the difficulty in running a business in this industry, is that a lot of the major companies can kind of come up to you and say, hey, I'll bring in this much product, but you got to give me X amount of time to pay this, that, and the other. And so early on, we decided, that we couldn't do that. You would pay for it, we would ship it, credit card, whatever. So anyway, so these are the things that I was able to get a chance to do in the redo and the kind of the rebirth of what RoMaCraft is, that I still truly believe to this day that I think are things that have to get done,
Okay.
that have to be done. So I've had that conversation. I've had to be able to do that and kind of implement it into this other thing. Now, as far as RoMa is concerned, um, I mean, again, we go back to when we had those initial conversations. At that moment in life, I was ready to go back into real estate. So I was in real estate, making good money, went into the cigar stuff, and kind of bled myself really dry and thin, and quickly realized, like, I've got to start getting money at a faster pace to maintain the lifestyle that I currently had. And so, uh, when Skip and I sat down in Nicaragua in 2011, and kind of mapped it all out, he said, "Hey, if we do this and we do this, we can make a really good life for ourselves." And so, um, that now, outside of that, I think that some of the things that made us really really good, as far as being very selective on tobacco, using only certain styles of tobacco and textures and thickness, kind of put you into kind of paint you into a corner, and kind of put you in a situation where you can't, you know, based on what Mother Nature provides you and what's available. Now you have to be kind of, you've set the bar so high.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't change that. I think that, you know, um, so I mean that's something that you just kind of roll with the punches and have to make do, and that kind of led into these other kind of variations of cigars that we've been able to make. So that's something that um, but like I said, I mean, all the redos and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and whatever. Like I got to do that in the second generation of what RoMaCraft has become.
So, well, Mike, I'm so grateful for your time tonight. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you again. I know it's been a long time since we've actually had a one-on-one conversation, so this was nice. It's just
Sure.
fortunate we get an audience to share along with us too, to watch along the way. But do appreciate it as always. So thanks to our audience for always staying up late with us as always. And if you're checking this out on our YouTube channel, you can always hit the subscribe button if you're and that would be fantastic. We broadcast live every Sunday night at 9:30 Central from this page, the Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR. So you can check us out there. We have some great guests coming up over the next few weeks as we march on to Take 300 and through the PCA next month. So that'll be fun times. Looking forward to seeing you there, Mike. And And if you're checking us out on podcast, where you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, hey, do me a favor and hit resubscribe, like unsubscribe, but then hit resubscribe because that really helps my numbers. And that's like the only reason that Mike agreed to be gone tonight was because my numbers were looking good. Not at all. But I do appreciate that, folks. And leave a review, especially if you are going to leave that 1-star feedback. You got to tell me why I suck. I mean, I think it's just appropriate at that point, and that's okay. I can take good feedback. So, but it's all kidding aside, we do appreciate everyone out there. Like, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. For everybody out there, this was our 280th take. And I'm Bear Duplessis, as always, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. He's Mike Rosales of RoMa Craft Tobacco. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.